Yeah, officially, I'd like to welcome you here in the House of the European Union to our press conference on the vital role of competition policy for Europe's competitiveness. We're very honored to have today with us Natalie Harsdorf, Director General of the Federal Austrian Competition Authority, and Olivier Guersent, Director General for Competition in the European Commission. As usual, we'll have short statements, and then we're happy to take your questions. Let me say that this press conference is bilingual, so you can talk either English or German. Thank you. Mr. Guersent, please.
Well, thank you very much. I will make my statement. I would be unable to do it in German, so you will have to do with English. I mean, I'm here today because Natalie and the Austrian Federal Competition Authority are hosting something that's very important for us, and that is the meeting of the European competition authorities to discuss common issues in competition policy and competition enforcement. It's important because we have our own network within the EU 27, where both Natalie and I are members. Today, this is the broader family that is meeting in Vienna, together with the colleagues from the UK, Switzerland, and that is important as well that we can have collective thinking together with colleagues from Europe at large. Why is it important? Well, you know, these days in Brussels, but I'm sure also in Vienna, the key word is competitiveness. We just have adopted our competitiveness compass in Brussels. I know competitiveness is a debated issue in Vienna. It's debated in virtually all the capitals in Europe at the moment. And competition policy in a market economy is an enabler for competitiveness. Actually, as Mario Draghi put it in the report he gave before the summer, in a market economy, there is no competitiveness without competition. This is competition that leads companies to be fitter, leaner, more cost-effective, make more innovation, more research, cut prices, offer better services. You know, in a nutshell, this is competition that brings about productivity growth and competitiveness. So this is really the basis. But in the modern economy, markets became at the same time broader, more global, but also more complicated, more intricate. Think about the world of technology, for example. I mean, markets are linked. If you are, I don't know, if you're Microsoft and you control Windows, you also control basically anyone that wants to be active on the PC because you need to be able to plug into Windows. And these markets do not have necessarily a vertical or traditional horizontal relationship. So everything is more complicated on a larger geographical scale. And that is why cooperation is super important. It's important that we have competition authorities in each of the member states because not all the problems are global. But it's also important that we are able to cooperate with each other, both multilaterally and bilaterally, in order to be able to grasp the issue and capture them at the scale they are taking place at. So within Europe, we have the European Competition Network. All the competition authorities, Natalie and her colleagues, just like me, just like the Bundeskartellamt in Germany, just like the French authority, we apply the competition rules of the treaty. And actually, the colleagues in the member states account for 90% of the decisions that are taken according to European law. So it's really important, and we do it together as a family. We discuss the rules together, we discuss the guidance together. The Commission doesn't issue a Commission guidelines on any topic in competition without us having discussed it in the ECN and having a consensus. So that's the way we work, and that's extremely important. Now, zooming into the case of Austria, I'm pleased to say that we have a specifically close cooperation with the Federal Competition Authority here, and Natalie in particular. We help each other. So we cooperate well in the network, we discuss policy, but in individual cases, we're happy to give a hand whenever we can be useful. And certainly, the Competition Authority of Austria is extremely useful, in particular in the area of mergers. There are a number of landmark merger cases for the European Commission that we would not have been able to assess if Natalie and her colleagues would not have referred these cases to us. So it's really Meta-Customer is a very good example, for example. So that's really something that is very important. We cooperate also in cartels and in many other fields. And I would like to conclude by saying that it's not, competition policy is not only, it is very much about enforcement, but it's also about making this cooperation live in Europe and outside of Europe. Because when you are tackling the GAFAs or large multinational companies, it's not only Austria, it's not only the EU. Sometimes, most of the times, the issues are global and they need to be discussed globally among enforcers. We have two fora to do this. One is the International Competition Network. We will gather in Edinburgh in a month and a half. And the other one is the OECD in Paris. And there I'm pleased to say that Natalie put Austria on the world map because of the responsibilities she took in the competition committee of the OECD recently. I have to say, voted in unanimously, but also the prominence she gives to the authority within the International Competition Network. So, and advocacy is really a big part of our deal, and outreach to other jurisdictions. So I'm very pleased that we can do this job hand in hand with Natalie and her colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Olivier. I will give my statement in German, but I think you will have support in any ways. You know the facts that I'm presenting. Ja, es ist große Ehre und Auszeichnung, dass wir jetzt heute dieses Meeting in Wien hosten dürfen, wo eben auch Großbritannien dabei ist und die EFTA-Staaten. Es ist gerade jetzt besonders wichtig, dass wir europäische Positionen definieren und wirklich eng zusammenarbeiten. Ich glaube, ganz wichtig ist das, was Olivier Guersent gesagt hat. Es gibt keine Wettbewerbsfähigkeit ohne Wettbewerb. Und das ist auch der Appell an die Wettbewerbsbehörden in Europa, sich gerade jetzt dafür einzusetzen, dass es ein faires Level Playing Field gibt in der Wirtschaft, national, aber auch im europäischen Binnenmarkt. Das ist für die Unternehmen wichtig, aber es ist auch für die Verbraucher sehr, sehr wichtig. Ich nehme die heutige Pressekonferenz zum Anlass, ein paar Zahlen und Fakten vom letzten Jahr zu präsentieren und unserem Tätigkeitsbericht sozusagen vorzuziehen. Die Wettbewerbsbehörde war sehr aktiv letztes Jahr. Wir haben 20 Verfahren am Kartellgericht eingeleitet. Welche Bereiche waren das? 14 Anträge davon waren auf Geldbußen. Das waren die Bereiche Consumer Electronics, die Bauwirtschaft, Abfallwirtschaft, Fahrbahnübergänge, Brückenlager, Getränke, Herstellung, Vertrieb von Schutzmasken, der Bereich der Obstwirtschaft, also betraf hier Obstbauern, und der Postbereich. Wir haben letztes Jahr insgesamt über 40 Millionen Euro an Bußen in Verfahren erwirkt. Wenn man das dem Budget der Wettbewerbsbehörde gegenüberstellt, dann ist das das Fünffache davon. Das ist jetzt nicht das Kernziel einer Wettbewerbsbehörde, weil wir arbeiten natürlich Richtung Prävention und Compliance, aber dennoch zeigt es, ist es eine gewisse Benchmark natürlich, dass wir sehr aktiv sind. Besonders wichtig, um Märkte offen zu halten, ist natürlich auch eine funktionierende Fusionskontrolle. Das ist eigentlich das Instrument, das zukunftsgerichtet Märkte offen hält. Insbesondere für ein KMU-Land wie Österreich ist es von Bedeutung, dass die Großen nicht durch Mergers and Acquisitions einfach immer noch größer werden, sondern dass es hier eben auch noch die Möglichkeit und den Raum gibt für Wettbewerb durch kleinere und mittlere Unternehmen. Wir haben in 4 Fusionsverfahren diese Fusionen nur unter Auflagen freigegeben. Wir haben 3 Fälle auch dann in die nächste Phase getragen vor das Kartellgericht. Dort ist es dann zu Auflagen gekommen und ich glaube, diese Tätigkeit wird auch zukünftig ein wichtiger Schwerpunkt sein. Die BWB ist aber auch sehr aktiv im Bereich Marktmachtmissbrauchsbekämpfung. Wir haben hier Bußen erwirkt, insgesamt in einer Höhe von über 24 Millionen Euro. Das betraf konkret den Kfz-Bereich, Peugeot und die Post. Und Marktmachtmissbrauch wird weiter eine Priorität der Wettbewerbsbehörde sein. Derzeit haben wir bekanntermaßen auch ein sehr großes Verfahren am Kartellgericht im Bereich Marktmachtmissbrauchsbekämpfung. Wir sehen, dass es sehr viel Vertrauen gibt in die Behörde als Institution. Das lesen wir einerseits darüber ab, dass auch letztes Jahr wieder Unternehmen von der Kronzeugenregelung Gebrauch gemacht haben. Wir haben 3 Kronzeugenanträge erhalten. Das ist europäisch durchaus eine sehr respektable Zahl in Anbetracht der Größe der Jurisdiktion. Wir haben auch in fast 100 Fällen Whistleblower-Kontaktaufnahmen gehabt, also über das anonyme Hinweisgebersystem, das wir haben. Und aus diesen Whistleblower-Eingaben sind auch konkrete Verfahren hervorgegangen. Ein Bereich, den wir sehen, wo sich vor allem Unternehmen sehr stark an uns wenden, ist der Bereich unlauterer Wettbewerb. Die Wettbewerbsbehörde kann ja auch vor den Zivilgerichten klagen wegen Verstößen gegen das UWG. Und hier sind die Zahlen wieder sehr stark angestiegen. Wir haben, wenn man zurückgeht, 2021 hatten wir 25 hier Beschwerden, größtenteils von Unternehmen wegen UWG-Verstoßen. Letztes Jahr hatten wir 106 Beschwerden, also das ist ein erheblicher Anstieg. Man könnte das jetzt negativ lesen und sagen, da passieren sehr viele problematische Verhaltensweisen. Ich lese es auch positiv, dass Unternehmen sich offenbar vermehrt an die Wettbewerbsbehörde wenden, wenn sie Missstände feststellen. Ein wichtiger Schwerpunkt war letztes Jahr auch die Präventionsarbeit. Wir haben ja in Österreich in den letzten Jahren viele Ausschreibungskartelle aufgedeckt. Das ist natürlich besonders problematisch, weil es da ja auch letztlich um Steuergeld geht. Wir haben eine Präventionskampagne gestartet, zum einen mit dem Bundesamt für Korruptionsbekämpfung, wo wir im Rahmen des Compliance-Kompass, so nennen wir das, Schulungen anbieten, insbesondere auch auf der Gemeindeebene. Und wir haben eine Checkliste entwickelt für ausschreibende Stellen gemeinsam mit den Landesrechnungshöfen, damit wir hier eben eine Guidance zur Verfügung stellen für ausschreibende Stellen, wie sie frühzeitig vermeiden können, dass es überhaupt zu einer Kartellierung kommt oder aufmerksam werden können auf Ungereimtheiten bei öffentlichen Ausschreibungen.
Ja, vielen Dank.
Ja.
Vielen Dank, many thanks. So we kindly ask you for your questions. Please state your name and the media you're working for.
Jakob Zirm. Geht? Okay. Jakob Zirm, Austrian newspaper Die Presse. Mr. Guersent, my first question would be for you. we talk now a lot about competitiveness, as you said, in Europe. And we've seen, if we take it on a global scale, that European companies are often too small for the global competition. And we had in former times the problem, we all know the example of Alstom and Siemens, the merger which wasn't allowed due to the too high market share inside the European Union. But if you now look on the global scale, it would be a bigger company would have had more competitiveness against Chinese or American competitors. Do you see a change in this policy that we must allow more European champions inside Europe, although then if they have high market share in the Union, to have better competitiveness on the global scale? What's your point to this?
Well, thank you. That's not a very surprising question, but I'm always happy to take it. Siemens Alstom was prohibited 6.5 years ago. Do you happen to know who are the two world leaders in train rolling stocks today?
It's China, CR something?
In that order, Alstom and Siemens. And by a long distance with the third one. So they are the two world champions, both of them rooted in Europe. And we have competition in Europe. And we still not have a single Chinese train in Europe, which was, well, look closely, maybe a few merchandise trains, but the thing was high speed, as you remember. So next time you board in a Chinese high-speed train in Europe, you send me a text. It may be in a couple of decades. So, but of course, I mean, if you look at the Draghi report is very interesting in this. Well, first of all, you will see that what Draghi says is, of course, it's competition that makes you competitive. So to think that you will be more competitive because you are shielded from competition, this is basically the premise. If I am protected from competition in Europe, which means I will be able to, on my core market, to impose higher prices, I will be able to innovate less as well because I will not have this competition that forces me to innovate. I will be more competitive abroad. Seriously? If I innovate less because on my core market, the one in which I make all of my profit, I'm less innovative, I will be more competitive when I'm bidding in South America or in the United States or elsewhere? I don't know, but I don't think so. Secondly, the result of domination in economic terms is always the same: higher prices. So basically, the gamble here is that the higher margins that this group will have by imposing a private tax on the economy in Europe, they impose a markup, is that they will use it to fuel their competitiveness abroad rather than to satisfy their shareholders and give better dividends. Maybe yes, maybe no. But what is for sure is that they will impose a private tax on the economy. And if you think about it, you know, 9 out of 10 of our European champions, if you define a European champion as a company that is the world leader in its activity, are SMEs. They're Austrians, they're Germans. And to be competitive, they need to have good, the highest quality, and the cheapest possible price transport services, connectivity services, etc. So you have to make the trade-off between, if I allow these big monsters, what is certain is that they will have a less incentive to innovate, and they will increase the prices in Europe. That will downgrade the competitivity of 20 million of SMEs, some of which are world leaders. And maybe that will increase their competitiveness outside of the Union. I think Siemens Alstom is quite a good example because we have the benefit of the insight. People say you should have authorized it. So we would not have competition in Europe. And probably they would be world leader, but they are anyway world leaders, and they have all the means to invest. So that's the first part of my answer. The second part of my answer, does that mean we should do nothing? No. Well, the world has changed, and in some activities, scale matters. Not in all activities, but in some activities where you have high sunk cost, where the cycles are long, where the competition for abroad is fierce, you need to have a minimal scale to be able to be a competitor on markets that are often global. Well, if the market is global, there is in principle no issue. If you're subjected indeed to competition on a global market, you would be authorized. By the way, the European Commission has reviewed around 10,000 mergers since 1990, since we have a control. Would you guess how many we prohibited? 39. 39? 39. Now, if you look at the 39 and you say, well, let's take out those in which the company that was acquiring was not an EU company, but it was a foreign company. Well, you take out about 60% of these 39. So you end up around 15. And if you're around this 15, you take out these cases in which there was no issue of a world market or a global champion. It was about South Germany, Eastern France, and wherever else. So regional markets within Europe. You're down to 7 cases since 1990 out of 10,000. So to say that this is the reason why we don't have world champions seems to me to be a bit far-fetched. Does that mean there is nothing we should do? No, that doesn't mean that, because as I said, in some markets it matters. And what Mr. Draghi says, he says 3 things. He said, basically, in broad terms, what you have been doing was the right thing to do. In the modern economy, there are 3 things that you should specifically look at. One is, are you fully equipped to consider innovation in the sense not of how the merger will impede innovation, that you do already, but sometimes maybe a merger may increase innovation in a way that would not have happened absent the merger. That you need to have a close look at and see how do you balance this into the balancing act you make when you decide to authorize or prohibit a merger. Second thing, in some markets, scale matters. What about investment? What if the merger is the only way to get the necessary scale to commit the necessary investment? You should have a closer look at this. And thirdly, resilience. Strategic autonomy, call it whatever you want. So the fact that we want to keep in Europe a number of productions in our jurisdiction. The fact that we want to have more resilient supply chains, that we want to have, we don't want to be fragile in terms of economic structure. And that Draghi said, well, most of the time, it's the competition that makes you stronger. Because if you think about resilience, you will not re-onshore 100% of what we consume. We are the first trading bloc in the world. That would be stupid. But resilience is therefore mainly about diversification. And diversification, you know what? Competition does this a lot better than monopolies. So most of the time, competition and resilience go hand in hand. But maybe, in some instances, there is a trade-off. How about that? These are the 3 issues that Mario Draghi says you should have a closer look at. And that is one of the reasons why, alongside with the fact that they're old, we are reviewing now our merger guidelines.
So if I may just add one question. So you said beforehand that it was 6.5 years ago that Alstom Siemens the case. So you would say in 2025, the outcome would be the same if there would be another?
Well, if you want to change the outcome, no, not necessarily, first of all, because even then the merger could have been authorized. Actually, 1 year later, 1.5 years later, we have authorized Alstom to acquire Bombardier. And that merger featured a lot of the same characteristics as Siemens Alstom. Yet we authorized it. Why? Because Alstom accepted the changes to the concentration plan that Siemens had not accepted. So to create a bigger world operator while keeping competition in Europe. So they have divested a number of operations in Europe to other companies so that we keep competition in Europe. Siemens was offered that choice as well. They chose not to do it.
Ich hätte noch eine dritte Frage an die Frau Harsdorf, jetzt gerne auf Deutsch. Nur eine Nachfrage zu diesen 100, wo Sie gesagt haben, dass diese Beschwerden wegen UWG-Verstöße seit 2021 von 25 auf 106 angestiegen sind. Worum geht es da konkret? Was sind da Beispiele?
Das sind sehr, sehr unterschiedliche Branchen, die betroffen sind. Es geht oft um eben irreführende Geschäftspraktiken, wo halt Wettbewerber sagen, das ist nicht fair oder in Ordnung, dass auf diese Art und Weise zum Beispiel geworben wird oder das entspricht nicht den Tatsachen. Wir haben aber auch manche sehr, sage ich mal, lapidare, wenn man so will, Verstöße, dass zum Beispiel kein Impressum angegeben wird. Also es sind ganz unterschiedliche Arten von Verhaltensweisen, die da angezeigt werden. Die BWB hat bisher hier auch letztes Jahr kein Verfahren vor dem Zivilgericht eingeleitet, sondern was wir hier machen, ist, dass wir die Unternehmen konfrontieren mit diesem Sachverhalt und wir haben derzeit eine 100%ige Abstellungsquote. Aber wenn es keine Abstellung gäbe, dann würden wir jetzt auch nicht scheuen, uns davor eine Klage auf Unterlassung beim Zivilgericht einzubringen. Ja.
Jetzt noch weitere Fragen? Ja, wir haben nämlich den Nils, bitte, Herr Hofer.
Ja. Funktioniert's? Nein. Geht? Okay. Danke. Christoph Hofer, selektiv. Meine Frage wäre auch an Sie, nämlich bei diesen Fällen, also die jetzt dann angestiegen sind. Ich glaube, es ist ein Anstieg um das Vielfache gewesen. Ja. Ich meine, es muss nicht unbedingt, wie Sie gesagt haben, daran liegen, dass mehr Fälle auch wirklich in der Realität auftreten. Es könnten auch einfach nur mehr gemeldet werden. Aber das verursacht ja zusätzliche Kosten und zusätzliche Ressourcen in Ihrer Behörde. Und ist es nicht so, also würden Sie eigentlich mehr Ressourcen dann brauchen, um diese Fälle auch zu behandeln in der entsprechenden Zeit? Oder ist das eine Herausforderung für Sie derzeit?
Ja, also zum einen ist es gelungen, die Behörde vollständig zu digitalisieren die letzten Jahre. Also wir haben hier sehr große Effizienzsteigerungen in der Behörde bewirkt. Es gab auch eine Ressourcenaufstockung, insbesondere sozusagen zum Höhepunkt der Debatte um die Treuerung, weil man, glaube ich, auch gesehen hat, wie wichtig es ist, dass die Wettbewerbsbehörde handlungsfähig ist. Und die Ressourcen spiegeln sich dann auch unmittelbar in Ergebnissen wider, weil um große Verfahren zu führen, da brauche ich dann tatsächlich, da arbeiten 5, 6, 7 Personen in meinem Team an einem Antrag. Und auf der Gegenseite stehen trotzdem viel, viel mehr Personen, weil da oft mehrere Kanzleien gemeinsam auf diesem Fall arbeiten und beauftragt sind, plus ökonomische Gutachter, plus Berater und so weiter. Also wir brauchen diese Ressourcen auch, sonst ist das gar nicht möglich, weil wir müssen die Fälle vor Gericht beweisen und da auch entsprechende Ressourcen einsetzen, sonst können wir auch gar nicht vor Gericht gewinnen. Ja.
Are there any further questions?
Just for clarification, two small questions. You said 10,000 or 100,000? 10,000, yeah, 10,000, about 10,000. And you said Siemens Alstom still number one. I just looked it up, but RRC, that was the one I forgot. Which is this is the biggest train company globally. So, but it's in a specific segment of high-speed trains. Or
Well, it's not only that. That is that well, okay, let's be a bit technical. The relevant market, as submitted by the parties, and that we accepted, is the world except China, because of course you don't compete in China.
okay.
So they are very big because they are very, very, very big in China. And in China, there is no other train.
Okay.
Just the same way, but for different reasons, that in Europe, we have only European high-speed trains.
Okay, if there are no further questions, then we close the official part of the press conference. Many thanks to Natalie Harsdorf and Olivier Guersent. Many thanks to our interpreter and to you, of course, for coming. As it's lunchtime, we prepared some sandwiches. Please feel free to eat some or grab some on the go. And yeah, we continue with the interviews. Many thanks. Vielen Dank.
Thank you. Thank you so much.